It's Michelle, and I thought I would make a video as to why I went vegan. I did not grow up in a vegan family or even a vegetarian family. My family is pretty okay with meat. I remember being like maybe 4 or something, maybe 5, and my mom had made cow's tongue for dinner, which was very normal in our family. Like think about it now, I'm like, ugh, it's like really gross. But cow's tongue was a pretty, it was not an exotic or unusual meal for us. I don't know if that's like a Jewish thing. I don't know, but cow's tongue was not weird for us to eat. And I remember kind of holding up to my own tongue, going, "Look, I'm Gene Simmons," because Gene Simmons. This was probably in the 70s or early 80s, where Gene Simmons had a reputation for having. Well, he has a very long tongue, but the reason why he has a long tongue, or was the rumor, was because he had a cow's tongue surgically attached to his own tongue, and that's why his tongue was so long. At least that was what I understood when I was like 4. I don't know if that's true. So I was like, "Yeah, look at me, I'm Gene Simmons." And yeah, so obviously there was a real disconnect between what I was eating, and but I think as I got older, I started to understand that like I'm eating an animal, and I don't think I was ever 100% comfortable with it. I think I kind of went with all the justifications that a lot of people go through. I was often told, oh, it's okay because the animals are here on this earth for us to eat, and therefore it's okay. It's like, oh, all right, and of course the whole idea, like, well, if we don't eat animals, we'll actually get sick because how will we get our protein and our calcium? And I was like, well, I don't want to get sick, So there was that, but I also, I mean, I think we were sort of, or I was sort of, how could I say it? It's like I remember in school, in possibly first grade, I guess, because we were still coloring, so it was probably around first grade, where we had this picture of these cows, cartoon cows, and they were really just like really bloated and puffy and like big balls, and we were coloring them in, and the whole thing about that I remember was saying that cows need humans because if they're not milked, they'll explode. And I remember thinking, well, gee, it's a good thing humans are around. And then I was kind of like, well, like, what did cows do before humans existed, And I was kind of like wondering about that, but never really, I guess, explored it too much. I figured, well, if it's happening, if I'm being taught that in school, then it must be true because, well, now I question things, but when I was, when you're 5, you don't question that as much. And, and I think as I got older, I was like, all right, you know what, I'm going to eat animals, but I'm going to say thank you before I eat them. And I was like, all right, cow, I'm really sorry that you died for this meal, but I respect you as much as one can respect you before I eat you, and I'm really, really sorry. And I was doing that for a while, and then that kind of went into like, all right, I sort of had these rules. I'm like, all right, I'll only eat animals if they meet a certain criteria. So if you're gross, absurdly cute, not cutesy, but cute, or impressive, I will not eat you. Therefore, like roaches, disgusting, I'm not gonna eat you. Squid, pretty freaking impressive creatures, as well as octopus, not eating you. And then cute, like I would not eat a cat or even like a baby goat. Baby goats are super cute, and and that's probably a sheep. I don't know, or an old man. I don't know. But I was like, I will not eat you because you fit into that criteria, But then, of course, I've also heard, going along with miseducation, that like chickens are jerks to each other because if you put chickens in a pen together, they will peck each other's eyes out because they're just vicious creatures. That's what I was taught. and what I believed. I'm like, well, screw chickens. Chickens are just jerks. I have no problem eating a chicken because a chicken will just totally peck each other's eyes out, and that's not cool, man. I don't want to eat anyone. I mean, I have no problem, like, these creatures who are so vicious and mean dying for my meal. No guilt whatsoever. And, you know, and cows, I never really emotionally bonded with a cow because, I mean, I lived pretty much either in the suburbs or in the city. So there wasn't really any farms that I could visit. And whenever I saw a cow, they had that, like, deranged look in their eye, like, "Meow." And I'm like, they're just weird, and they're not cute, and I'm just kind of weird creatures. So I have no problem eating you as well. But it really wasn't until I went to the Prospect Park Zoo in Brooklyn, New York, and they had a farmer's exhibit within the zoo. And and I remember there was this one cow, and the cow was so mellow and sweet and just giving off like love. And I love dogs and cats, you know, and whenever I see a dog on the street, you know, with either her or human, and there's that moment of like instant love exchange where I'm like, oh my god, I don't know who you are, but I love you, puppy. And the dog's like, I love you, human. And then we go on our separate ways, but there's that moment of just like love exchange going on, and that's what happened between me and this cow. And I'm like, oh my god, you're like the most awesome cow ever. And the cow's like, you're the most awesome human ever. And just love, you know, going between us. And then it hit me, I'm like, holy shit, you eat cows. And I'm like, oh my god, I am the biggest asshole ever because you're just giving me so much love. And then I eat your kind, I eat your species. And then I was like, what am I gonna do? I can't do that. And then it kind of dawned on me in that moment that cows, like dogs and cats and like most mammals, react to their environment. So chances are, if the cows are all weird and disturbed looking, their environment is really messed up. Whereas, you know, cows, if given the chance to be in kind of, still in a zoo, but in a more loving environment where there's tons of kids, want to pet the cow, and the cow gets all this attention and love and, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, all things considered, that the cow is going to reflect that, and the cow is going to be really loving and happy and, you know, all that good stuff. So I was like, holy shit, all right, I can't eat cows anymore. And then I was like, well, my god, I bet like other animals are just the same. They're just aware of what their environment and, you know, all different things. So then at the same time, though, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm medically prone to being anemic. And I was told at that time by the doctor that I had that I have to eat beef, a little bit of beef every day, or I will go into full blown anemia. And I've been anemic, and it wasn't much fun. So I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? How can I like balance out this new kind of awareness with like not getting sick? Because, you know, anemia is no joke. And it just kind of happened that there was this stomach bug that was going around. You know, and I was also concerned, like, how to get my protein, you know, because I'm like, you need animals to get your protein. That's what I've been taught from from the time I was a little kid. So, it just so happened there was a stomach bug that was sort of going around. It started, I think, or I don't know when it started, but it was in Connecticut, and where my mom lives. When she came to visit me, she didn't know she had it, but she brought it. And it wasn't a horrible stomach virus where you were just like vomiting and like thinking you're possessed. It was just kind of like one where you couldn't eat a lot of heavy foods. And one of those things I could not seem to handle was meat. I could still have eggs and dairy, and maybe a little bit of fish every once in a while, but like beef, no. Chicken, no. Lamb, because I eat lamb too, no. Because lambs weren't cute, they were cutesy. So that did not fit the criteria of my rules. And so for 2 weeks, I did not eat meat. I had some fish, I was still eating eggs. But I realized, I was like, oh, you know, I actually feel lighter now that I'm not eating all this meat. And my stomach was always very extended after a meal because I have medical issues, wheelchair. And so because it is harder on the body to digest kind of sort of meats and animal proteins, I never realized how much I was having such a hard time doing that. And then when I wasn't eating it, I felt lighter, I felt almost cleaner in a way, I don't know how else to describe it. And I also realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not going into full-blown anemia here. You know, because I was eating lots of salads and vegetables in exchange, because that's all I could eat. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could go at least vegetarian, you know. Um, and so that's what I started doing. I actually I went pescatarian, meaning that I don't eat any meat, but I do eat fish. I mean, which is technically, it's still like the meat of a fish, but it's not called meat. And I'll still eat eggs, because I want to ease into it because of my anemia. I didn't want to go cold turkey, so to speak. But, you know, I did want to kind of go into that. And, you know, I found that I was starting to feel better, but still I was eating a lot of eggs and still eating a lot of fish. And what I realized is that what I had to do in order to go full on vegan, which is what I wanted to do, was to find substitutes for meat. Not necessarily faux meats, but like, okay, when am I consuming meats and animal products, you know? And then find things to have in place of that in those situations. So for me, I have always been eating a lot of salads, and I loved, or I used to love, rather, having chicken in my salad. It was chicken, tomatoes, and Romaine lettuce, some dressing, mix it all up, you know, and and that's what I would have. I was like, all right, what else can I eat in place of this chicken, you know? And I started to have beans, because beans are a super cheap protein, and I started saving a lot of money on my grocery bill because of that, because chicken is way more expensive than beans. Beans like 89 cents for a pound basically, and chicken you can't get 89 cents for a pound. That's much more expensive. And I started to slowly replace situations when I was eating animal products. I kind of phased it out, and then you know, I eventually began to phase out eggs and fish because I saw how good I felt, or how much better I felt without animal products, and then I saw that I was not feeling as good when I was having eggs and fish. I also learned that I don't need to eat as many beans as I thought, that there's lots of protein in vegetables. I mean, even a banana has 1 gram of protein, which I didn't know. I thought you really needed you need to eat meat and animal products to get your protein. In terms of calcium, that you can get plenty of calcium. Yeah, I found that it was way easier, and you know that I didn't need to have access to a health food store because I was living at the time in Bensonhurst, and actually no, I was living in Gravesend, which is kind of near Coney Island, but it's a real meat and potatoes kind of part of Brooklyn. It's not trendy at all. In fact, you probably haven't even heard of it unless you actually live there. But it's definitely not your like trendy Williamsburg, or maybe they have some vegan cafes. There's no vegan cafes. The fact that they even had soy milk in the market took a while. But mostly, I mean, there was actually an Italian pork shop around the corner from where I lived. And even then, I had no problem going vegan. And then once I went vegan, what happened? And for a week, I did not feel good. I didn't feel horrible, but I felt worse. And I was like, I don't know, this is a good idea because I'm not feeling great. I felt almost like, not that I had the flu, but like this did not feel good. And I asked other vegans, and they said, yes, sometimes, not with everybody, because I do have mental issues. People go through sort of like a detox phase where you're like all the crap of the animals that you're eating and all the dairy and eggs and whatnot are leaving your body. And I certainly couldn't afford, you know, the more like healthier versions of meat because I'm on fixed income, you know, and I'm on disability, and I can't afford to be all buying the fancy, you know, stuff there. So, all that came out of my body. But then that lasted for about a week. It was not hell. It was not like undoable. It was just like okay, what's going on with my body? This is weird. Is this a good thing or or what? But then after that 5-day period, I felt better than I have felt in a very, very long time. And then I started to find out just, you know, I mean, because really I did it for ethical reasons and then also for health reasons. But then I started to learn more about it and exactly what these animals go through. I mean, I knew it was not great for them because they're being killed, but then I started to learn the details, exactly what their life is like, and it is a living hell. And I was like, I am so glad I'm not part of that because, especially knowing indeed, you know, like cows and pigs are just like my cats and dogs, and I realized that, and I was like, I do not want to be part of that. But also, as an environmental activist, I started reading all these articles and learning how the meat and dairy industry is one of the largest contributors to climate change. I was like, well, now I'm really glad I'm vegan, or even more glad than before, because yay, I am not for climate change. Climate change sucks. I live in New York City. We survived Hurricane Sandy. Gravesend, where I was pretty much spared, but a lot of neighbors weren't, and I volunteered after that, and I saw how destructive climate change can be, since they were linking, Hurricane Sandy to climate change. And I was like, wow, I am so glad I'm vegan on multiple levels, because this is no joke. I want to share that, to let people know, that, I think we're really raised to be pro-meat, and we're kind of raised with this ill knowledge and these basically lies of what animals are like, and that we need animal products. And I mean, it's even in our schools, for Christ's sake. But it's one of the best things I could have done for myself and the earth and the animals. So that's why I'm a vegan. That's my story. I'd love to hear, if you're thinking of going vegan, or have you gone vegan, tell me your story as well. If you have any questions, I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything, or an expert, but I'll be happy to answer them. And that's it. Bye.